And so I estimate that only about 9% of the people who have inherited the black consciousness can be saved. And the black consciousness that I'm referring to is made up of a collection of ideas, beliefs, habits, and character traits which have their roots in the slave environment. And many of these have reincarnated into the descendants of the slaves and have taken on various forms in the continuously ever-changing environment. And so what I mean by that is, for example, self-hate. It didn't take on the same exact expression in slavery as it does today. And that's because the environment and what was available in that environment was completely different at that time. And so we can take straightening hair, for example, and also bleaching skin. Those products and that ability to do that was not available in that environment. So self-hate couldn't express itself in that manner. And so the way that people express self-hate, it changes as the environment around them changes and as the materials and the products available in that environment changes as well. But it's still a manifestation of self-hate. And so in the creation of the Negroes or black people, the European colonists, they created an artificial environment, right? That was designed to make the slaves that were within that environment develop within themselves the worst ideas, the worst beliefs, the worst habits, and the worst character traits, right? That would drag them down into the pit. And so this was the creation of the Negro, who was the creation of the European for the sole purpose of being a permanent slave. That's coming from the Europeans' imagination, right? To make this type of person. And so most of the blacks today, they're trapped in this pit, right? But in varying degrees. And what I mean by that is that there are some who are still at the very bottom of this pit, some who have climbed to the middle of this pit, and some that have climbed even further up, right? But what I'm saying is that there's only 9% today who are going to climb completely out of the pit, right? And receive the reward at the end of that climbing. And so how does one climb all the way out of the pit, you may ask? The answer is easy, but the action takes much effort. And the answer is you have to stop being a black person. And how do you do that? By not continuing to do what black people are known to do. And why would you want to do that? Because what black people are known to do has shown over and over and over to not work, right? It hasn't worked in creating good relationships. It hasn't worked in building positive communities. It hasn't worked in achieving better education. It hasn't worked in promoting better health. It hasn't worked in raising better women. It hasn't worked in raising better men. It hasn't worked in creating a better life today. It just hasn't worked. And so when something has shown itself over and over and over not to work, then what does the critically thinking person do? They do something else. And what does the crazy person do? They continue doing the same exact thing and then hoping for a different outcome. And so which of these do the blacks in America fall under? The critically thinking or the crazy? You tell me. And so the job of the 9% is to escape from all of these unproductive ideas, unproductive beliefs, unproductive habits, and unproductive character traits that you have inherited from your foreparents. That's your job. This is the caterpillar into the butterfly, the black consciousness into the new consciousness. Now listen closely because I want you to look at this from a very specific angle right now. Now answer this. What has happened when you have found yourself facing a very tough time in your life? Maybe you've experienced some type of hard breakup or some type of divorce, or maybe you've been caught up with a drug or alcohol addiction or any type of adversity that really seemed to have set you back. Now, if you didn't rise above that situation, then what happened? You remained down low in a low state. That's the pit, right? That's the caterpillar. And we all know that the caterpillar is preparing to become a butterfly. Just as these low situations are preparing the old human or the old person to emerge into a new human or a new person. Understand? And so the adversities are necessary for the growth because they create the necessary circumstances for correcting the character, modifying the mindset, or perfecting the personality. And how that looks is that when you find yourself in a pit, there's going to be certain ideas, beliefs, and certain behaviors that's going to keep you stuck down there. But on the flip side, there's also certain ideas, beliefs, and behaviors that's going to raise you up out of that pit, right? And it's your job to find out what those are. But understand that in order to apply them and to get all the way out of the pit, what's going to happen is you have to make tweaks to your character, your mindset, or your personality along the way up, right? And it is those tweaks right there that are exactly what were needed for you to evolve as a person or to turn into the butterfly. That was a requirement for you, right? And so the purpose of the pit is to put pressure on your personality. So the I am that I am that's within you can become what it will become. This is life's purification process, and you can know it for your own self by all of the pits that you have climbed out of during your own lifetime, right? They've made you a stronger, wiser, and more resilient person. Those were the times that created change in you as a person. Now understand this. When we take this perspective from the personal level and we zoom out, we can see it on the group level, and then we can examine the case of the Negro. The dealers of destiny selected a number of people to go through a unique purification process with the outcome of evolving a specific aspect of human consciousness. Thus, we have the beginning of the Negro consciousness in the pits of slavery as the caterpillar. And for the past few centuries, the Negro consciousness has been slowly evolving, right? Due to the environmental pressures that were placed upon it, right? Some people evolving quicker than others, some people evolving slower. And so in recent history, it has reached its final phase of evolution, where it can now finally evolve into a new consciousness, right? Which is the destiny of it. But the old Negro consciousness must first be shed before a person can experience this. Just as in the process of becoming a butterfly, it must shed its old skin. And so I want you to pay attention right now to what I'm about to say. Only about 5% of the caterpillars are going to reach the stage of a butterfly. What happens to the rest of them? They don't make it. Some of them get eaten as eggs, some get eaten as caterpillars, and some are eaten in their final phase just before they're getting ready to make the final transformation into a butterfly. But most of them do not make it. And likewise, we see a similar case with the blacks. The vast majority of them are not going to completely make it in these up and coming years. Many of them are far behind. Some of them have greatly evolved, but only a few will complete the journey. And that's it. And the reason that they're not going to make it is because they want to stay as the caterpillar. The few who do make it are the ones who have a desire to complete the journey to become the butterfly. And so what are some of the things that are involved in completing this journey? One of the things that's involved is a change in the character, right? A change in the character. Now, when the butterfly emerges, it no longer looks like the caterpillar, right? There's a clear distinction between the caterpillar and the butterfly. Likewise, when a person takes on the new consciousness, there should be a clear distinction between the character from the old person and the character of the new. If there's no clear distinction, then the evolution has not been completed, right? And so another area in the completion of this journey is taking on a new identity, which for us, we go by the name Earpoids, people of the free world. And some of you are going to take on that name as well in the up and coming years. But for the others, they're going to have to create their own name for themselves that they go by. And one thing that I want to make clear is that we don't create these videos only for the people who are going to become Earpoids, right? That's not only the people that we do it for. We do it also for the other people who are getting out of the Negro consciousness, because we understand clearly that a portion of the 9% will become Earpoids and the other portion will have groups of their own, which I think is absolutely fantastic as well, as long as it's based on a foundation that solves the current major problems, right? Or else what's going to happen is you're just going to be a bunch of people that are like the rest of the blacks, but just have a new name, right? And that defeats the entire purpose. That's not the evolution into the butterfly that we're talking about. And so, like I said, these videos are for everyone who's in the 9%. And so another part of completing the journey is becoming a people that are community centered and understand the power of the collective. And for that to happen, people have to address the traits of jealousy, envy, and hatred, right? Which plague many of the people in the black community. And it prevents them from accomplishing just about anything together that's positive. And so in the harnessing of this collective power, creating physical communities where people live next to each other is going to be a major part of the application of this power. Because in doing so, an environment and an atmosphere will be created that sets up the youth on a path to succeed in multiple areas in life. And online alone is not a proper tool to accomplish this. And so what this means is that the people who make up these physical communities, they have to value life success as an objective for their own lives as well. And their everyday lives have to reflect that, right? And so this is going into the creation of a new mass mind with a new set of values, new set of standards, and a new set of expectations that energizes everyone in the community to move towards those goals. You see that? Now, the black community as a whole, they've already shown over and over to be incapable of producing those type of results because the energy current and the mass mind that they have is working against those goals. So that's the problem, right? And the energy is way too strong in that community to try to go in there and change that community from the inside. And so you have to know when it's time to move on and when to call it quits and to let people be as they be. Do you see that? But with that said, these physical communities, they also have to exist so they can give other people who are making their evolution from the Negro consciousness a place that's welcoming and a place that is encouraging their development as a person, right? A place that has an atmosphere and an environment that is optimized for that result. Because when you really think about it, where are the communities at right now where these type of people can go, right? They don't exist, right? The best that people can do or families can do is that they can pack up, move somewhere into the suburbs, and live amongst the community with a bunch of other individualistic people, right? And we understand that there's not much real power in individualism, at least not for most people. A few people can get some really big benefits out of it, but for the vast majority of people, it doesn't yield the type of results that they think it does. And so the community focus is where the action is at. And that's because that's where the strength is really at. That's where the strength lies at and where the most power can be used. And so you can do a lot more with the right people than you can when you try to do it by yourself. And so for the 9% of people who will complete the journey, you have to understand that you have a great amount of responsibility that lies ahead and you have a big task at hand. And so this is something that you have to dedicate your life to because it's really that serious. And so hopefully this video has given you something to think about and has given you some additional light on your path and to find your way on the journey. There's a lot more things that have to be covered when completing the journey, and we'll continue going over them in more videos coming down the line. And so I want to thank you right now for watching all the way into the end. My name is Brooklyn St. Michael, and I'll see you in the free world.